When disrespect lands, do you feel the familiar crack, or the surprising steadiness of something within you that no longer fractures? Pause there. That flicker of steadiness is not numbness, not denial, and not indifference. It is the first sign of a center being claimed. It is the quiet birth of a woman who has learned to stand in herself even when the room forgets her worth. If you have felt that subtle shift, a sting without collapse, keep listening, because what unfolds next can change not only how you answer disrespect, but how you inhabit your life. Transformation rarely begins with a comeback, a speech, or a dramatic exit. It begins with consciousness. Carl Jung mapped the territory for us long before the word boundaries became fashionable. He taught that the deepest changes happen when we stop confusing our passing emotions with our permanent identity. Ready for the counterintuitive part? The most spiritually developed women respond to disrespect in ways that look almost effortless, sometimes even quiet, yet they reshape the entire dynamic. Keep this thread in your hand as we walk. You are not performing strength. You are remembering it. Start with the moment itself. Someone dismisses your idea, laughs at your voice, interrupts your sentence, or pretends not to hear what you clearly said. You feel the heat rise. Once you might have rushed to explain, to justify, to plead your case. Now watch another possibility unfold. You register the pain, breathe into your ribs, and let the feeling move like weather through a spacious sky. You do not chase the cloud, and you do not become the storm. You witness. Jung called this development of consciousness, the capacity to experience without being entirely possessed by the experience. That single shift alters the moral physics of the room. That single distinction reclaims a world of power. When you touch a hot pan, your hand withdraws. You do not write a thesis on heat. Your body recognizes danger and chooses safety. Emotional disrespect deserves the same swift wisdom. Many of us were trained to override it, to smile through the scorch, to explain the burn, to prove we deserve cool air. The mature woman rewrites the script. She trusts the signal, responds in proportion, and refuses to equate another's behavior with her value. This is integration, the gathering of scattered parts under one steady light, and then a second door opens. Instead of making the moment solely about the other person, why are they like this? How could they? She turns inward and listens for what was activated. Jung's language helps: projection, shadow, complex. The world, he said, often functions as a mirror, returning to us the unhealed edges of our own story. This is not self-blame. It is self-responsibility. The question becomes precise. Why does this particular tone cut so deep? What old narrative tries to take the microphone? What unexamined belief about my worth is being invited into daylight? Curiosity, not condemnation, becomes the method. Picture this. In a meeting, a woman offers a careful idea. A colleague smirks and moves on. The familiar tightness gathers at her sternum. The old script loads: here we go again, you're not enough. But the woman has done her work. She names the sensation, recognizes the storyline, and declines to buy the ticket. She doesn't abandon herself, and she doesn't abandon reality. She addresses what must be addressed, perhaps simply with a steady "I haven't finished," and then without drama she continues. Notice the chain broken here. No scramble to prove, no collapse into silence. The center chooses, and the room quietly recalibrates. Here another paradox arrives. The more integrated she becomes, the less she explains. Many of us have been conditioned to perform our worth on demand. If someone cannot see, we become teachers, translators, advocates for the obvious. Jung's typology reminds us, people process the world differently. Some lack the capacity or the readiness to perceive certain forms of value. Trying to force recognition where there is no receptor is like throwing color at a closed eye. You can exhaust a lifetime there. The spiritually mature woman refuses the assignment. She stops arguing for her existence and starts living it. This restraint is not coldness, it is precision. Strength often looks like stillness. The loudest answer is not always the most powerful. Sometimes the most powerful answer is an inner movement so exact the room cannot see it, a recalibration of access. She makes a quiet note about character. She adjusts expectations. She rebalances time. She steps back from tables that require her to slice herself thin for a seat. And if you listen closely, the moment she stops over-explaining, the world starts learning how to listen. Jung named the capacity to hold opposites without splitting the transcendent function. You can feel hurt and choose dignity. You can acknowledge harm and withhold enmity. You can care for someone's humanity and refuse their unconsciousness a home in your nervous system. When this function develops, a third path appears beyond fight or flight. Not appeasement, not aggression, alignment. From alignment, responses become artful. A single sentence, a boundary that is lived, not shouted, a silence that is unmistakably full. You do not abandon truth, you embody it. Words matter less when presence speaks first. Human beings are exquisitely sensitive to energy, even when we do not have language for it. You have met people who command respect without demanding it. They are not posturing. They are not performing. They are simply anchored. The woman who inhabits her body, who has reconciled her contradictions, who knows the tectonic plates of her story, she radiates a signal that says, here is the line. It is not brittle. It is not hostile. It is unmistakable. Without a speech, everyone receives the message. This is not magic. It is practice. Jung emphasized that psychological integration is embodied. The body is not a courier for the mind. It is a gate of knowing. Your gut, your breath, your shoulders, they register disrespect before the prefrontal cortex composes a paragraph. The spiritually mature woman trusts that registration. She refuses to gaslight her own bones. She steps back from the relative who jokes at her expense, from the friend who treats her care as endless labor, from the leader who praises in public and undermines in private. She does not make a shrine of resentment. She makes a home for truth. I want you to consider a garden. Not every plant thrives in every soil. The wise gardener does not scold a fern for failing on a sun-baked hill. She relocates it to shade and gives the cactus its rightful light. In the same way, the woman who has cultivated discernment stops forcing fit. She knows that withdrawing from a poor ecology is not failure. It is fidelity to growth. Yes, people may be disappointed, especially those nourished by her former tolerance. Yes, she may be misunderstood by those who preferred her available and apologetic. But fidelity to growth is not a sin. It is a vow kept. Here is the transformational pivot. Disrespect becomes data. When met consciously, even painful moments turn into guidance. Jung's language of alchemy is useful. Lead into Gold was never about metallurgy. It was about how awareness transmutes suffering into wisdom. Each insult clarifies what is yours and what is projection. Each dismissal reveals where an old complex still lives. Each micro-cut illuminates where your time is best invested and where your spirit bleeds in vain. You are not seeking disrespect, but when it arrives, you extract its teaching and refuse its verdict. Over time, this practice creates what can only be called psychological immunity. Not immunity as in invulnerability. You still feel, you still care. But immunity as in response without infection. Like a tree that has met many winds, your roots descend, your trunk thickens, your branches learn the language of flexible strength. You stop taking other people's shadows personally. You stop accepting every provocation as a summons. You stop outsourcing your center to external weather. That is freedom of a rare and luminous kind. Freedom changes your timing. Instead of being yanked by the moment into reflex, you open space between stimulus and response. In that space you can see the sensation in the belly, the story trying to resurrect, the familiar urge to defend. Seeing is sovereign. From there you choose. Address the behavior with clarity. Remove yourself and decline future availability. Let your actions, not your arguments, teach. Whatever you choose, it comes from your center rather than your wound. That difference is everything. Jung would call this movement toward the self, capital S, the unification of your personality under conscious leadership. When a woman moves from compulsive explanation to simple embodiment, from winning the scene to protecting the center, she becomes paradoxically softer and stronger. Compassion deepens because she sees the machinery of projection without absorbing the shrapnel. Boundaries sharpen because she is no longer negotiating her value. Once you no longer need to win, you become almost impossible to manipulate. Imagine the quiet liberation of leaving a room without the itch to be vindicated. Imagine the calm of declining the argument that would only recruit your nervous system into war. Imagine the steadiness of letting someone be wrong about you while you remain right with yourself. This is not resignation, it is sovereignty. Worth ceases to be a market price fluctuating with other people's moods. It becomes a wellspring that you draw from and protect. Call that wellspring God, soul, self, or the life that breathes you. It does not shrink when ignored or swell when flattered. From this interior abundance, boundaries arise without theatrics. No arrives without adrenaline. Enough lands without apology. You do not hype yourself to enforce them. You do not repeat mantras to believe them. You act because truth has weight. Others register it even if they cannot explain it. Some will try different strategies when the old tactics fail. Some will fade away because drama finds no purchase. Some will relax, grateful to be in the field of someone who does not barter dignity for belonging. The ripple widens. One woman who refuses to crumple teaches a daughter without a speech. One friend who withdraws from a toxic loop gives another permission to choose peace. One colleague who calmly names an interruption changes a meeting's culture. Archetypes, Jung said, evolve through human lives. When a woman embodies dignity without defensiveness and compassion without collapse, she helps the collective story tilt toward the sane. The world may not applaud the moment you step out of a degrading dance, but it will be quietly altered by your refusal to keep dancing. Now, let's return to the place most people stumble. The desire to be seen by those who cannot or will not see. There is a part of us, the young one, the eager one, that believes if we just articulate it clearly enough, just stay a little longer, just prove a little harder, understanding will arrive and the pain will end. The mature woman recognizes the trap. She knows that some mismatches are structural, not temporary. She releases the fantasy that her worth depends on another's revelation. This is where the most exquisite peace begins, you might ask. But what about love? What about commitment? What about the relationships I want to keep? Precisely here, the transcendent function is essential. Love without boundaries is not love. It is leakage. Commitment without clarity is not virtue. It is erosion. The woman anchored in herself can forgive without inviting repetition, can stay without self-betrayal, or can leave without hatred. She recognizes capacity. She calibrates intimacy to respect. She tells the truth once, maybe twice. If the truth cannot be held, she tells it to herself and acts accordingly. On the ground, this looks plain. She shortens conversations that slide toward contempt. She stops laughing at jokes that run on her dignity. She removes herself from the table, where her labor funds someone else's laziness. She edits the guest list for her inner life. She does it quietly, without ceremony, because she is guarding something holy, her center. From that center, her contributions become cleaner, less rescuing, more relating, less performance, more presence. Do not mistake this for hardness. True softness is only possible when you are not perpetually endangered. When your center is secure, tenderness returns. You can look at someone's clumsy behavior and see the wound under it. You can feel the pang and still keep your boundary. You can meet disrespect with a response that is firm enough to teach and kind enough not to humiliate. That balance is the mark of maturity, not because you owe gentleness to the careless, but because you refuse to become what hurt you. Consider again the alchemy. You cannot skip the fire. You learn by feeling, by noticing, by choosing in real time. Each time you meet disrespect with consciousness, your nervous system records a new pathway. The old highway, explain, fix, chase, gets less traffic. The new road, sense, name, choose, gets paved. It is slow, and sometimes you will take the old exit. That is fine. That too is data. Awareness is patient. The center does not scold. It invites you back, and you return again and again, a little quieter, a little truer. There will be moments when the room still forgets. There will be days when a stray sentence pierces, because it found the one place you have not yet healed. On those days, remember this: the battlefield is not between you and the offender. It is between your awareness and the old shadow that would gladly run your life again. Choose awareness. Name the shadow. Do the small, brave action that protects your dignity today. You are not auditioning for worth. You are practicing sovereignty. Now ask the questions that keep the path fresh. What is this teaching me? Where do I still over-explain? Which boundaries quietly need to become visible? Which spaces nourish me, and which drain me no matter how brightly I show up? What am I ready to stop negotiating? Let these questions be hooks you return to whenever you feel yourself pulled back toward old negotiations with your soul. With time, something almost invisible but unmistakable settles over your life. You do not need to perform. You do not need to convince. You do not need to be right to be real. Respect, when it does not appear, no longer destabilizes you because you carry it with you. That is not arrogance. That is adulthood. The storms keep coming, as storms do, but they no longer determine your climate. You keep your weather within reach. If you are listening, there is a good chance you already sense this shift rising. Let it rise. Refuse to hand your center to anyone who treats it like a toy. Refuse to educate the unwilling at the expense of your aliveness. Refuse to run back into rooms that taught you to mistrust your own eyes. You have already paid enough to learn these lessons. Harvest them. Perhaps the most subversive of all. You do not need a perfect past to claim a powerful present. Your history, with its scars and misfires, is not a liability in this work. It is a library. Every time you felt the crack and found your steadiness anyway, you stacked another book on the shelf. Open those books. Pull out the wisdom. Apply it to the next conversation, the next meeting, the next moment when a voice tries to shrink you. And when you make a mistake, do not add shame to the stack. Awareness, not punishment, is what rewires a life. The journey Jung sketched is not a staircase you climb once. It is a spiral you circle through seasons of your life. Each loop widens your capacity to feel without fusing, to love without losing yourself, to speak without pleading, to leave without hate. Each loop deepens your roots and extends your branches. Each loop makes you both more particular and more universal. Along the way, you will discover that the strongest statement you ever make may be the quiet one, living aligned without announcement. So when disrespect lands tomorrow, as it sometimes will, remember the map. Sense before you speak, separate feeling from identity. Look for the old script and set it down. Let your presence carry the first message. Offer words that match reality and require no performance. If recognition does not arrive, step away with your center intact. Gather the data, tend the wound it points to, alchemize it. Move forward lighter, wiser, truer. This is not the story of never feeling pain. It is the story of refusing to build a home in it. It is the story of a woman who stops auditioning for permission to be whole. It is the story of consciousness doing what it does best, turning the heat of life into clarity, the dust of insult into fertile ground, the restless hunger for approval into a steady well of self-respect. You do not have to wait for anyone to grant you entry to that story. Step in. The center is already yours. Because precision matters, consider 3 quick scenes that reveal response over reaction. First, a relative makes a cutting remark camouflaged as humor. The old you would have defended and replayed it for days. The centered you sets down your fork and says, "That doesn't work for me." No monologue. Your self-respect becomes the instruction the room receives. Second, a supervisor presents your idea as his own. Rather than arguing, you write, "I'll present the draft I developed last week." You claim authorship by living it. If the pattern persists, you escalate through clear channels, but you refuse to build a personality around being wronged. Quiet agency replaces endless explanation. Third, a partner meets your vulnerability with impatience. The younger self begged to be understood. The centered self breathes, names the impact. "When you rush me, I shut down," and protects the conditions intimacy requires. If repair happens, it happens in a field of mutual respect, not on the altar of apology theater. These are not scripts. They are illustrations of posture. Jung would say you are moving from persona, the pleasing mask, towards self, the ground that does not need a spotlight to exist. From that ground, words carry a weight that volume cannot counterfeit. Another layer ripens beside strength: grief. Claiming the center often means mourning seasons spent far from it, time lost to contorting, parts of self that went quiet to stay connected, years when respect was negotiated at a discount. Let grief move. It composts the past into nourishment. Naming cost becomes soil where durable boundaries grow. There is also joy, steady and renewable. Joy in leaving a conversation early and feeling peace instead of panic. Joy in a friendship that deepens when you stop performing and start arriving. Joy in work that finally reflects your voice because you stopped ghostwriting your life for someone else's approval. This joy is simple and unmistakable, the signature of alignment. Learn the feel of respect, not its idea, its feel. Respect in a voice has cadence. Respect in a schedule has margins. Respect in a touch has listening inside it. Once your nervous system learns that texture, counterfeits itch, you waste less time negotiating with almosts and move toward what is truly reciprocal because you practice respect toward yourself. You recognize it in the world with increasing speed. What of power? Jung warned that power without consciousness collapses into domination or defeat. The center you are building refuses both. It is stewardship, not spectacle. The authority to author your life sentence by sentence, Every boundary is a line of authorship. Every no edits the story. Every yes advances the plot of becoming. You will look back and see chapters that turned, because you chose alignment over audience. Carry one sentence into the next hard moment. My worth is not up for discussion. Not please see me, not here is the proof. Simply not up for discussion. Close the courtroom in your mind and live. Finally, mercy. Toward yourself first, then others. You will falter and overstay. You will explain one more time and feel the old ache. Offer mercy without abandoning accountability. Name what happened, learn what it cost, repair what you can. Mercy is not a loophole for avoidance. It is the climate where honest change takes root. Extending it outward then becomes clean, because you can discern without dehumanizing. Give yourself time to practice. Capacity grows with use, and clarity multiplies with action. The more you live from the center, the more life meets you there. Again and again,